Household recycling began in earnest in Milwaukee in 1989. Now 85% of the population is taking part, some 190,000 households.
And in total, since '89, we've collected about 150,000 tons of recyclables. Of that amount, there's been very little contamination, and everything that has been processed and baled has been successfully marketed. So our program actually is one of the finest in all of North America right now.
Milwaukee's recycling waste is taken to the material recovery facility in the Menominee Valley. Paper products head in one direction. About 60% of all newspapers are now recovered. They'll take on a new life as new newsprint, recycled paperboard, tissue, and printing writing paper. Bottles and cans head in another direction for separation and distribution to processors. Plastics may go to Georgia or New York, glass to Chicago, tin to Waukesha, steel cans to Waupaca. And aluminum cans are taken to Milwaukee's Miller Compressing Company. Like many such firms, it's no Johnny-come-lately to the recycling business.
Our company has been recycling since 1903. Steel and steel products have been recycled, basically being sold to steel mills and foundries. Some of the aluminums are sold to refiners. And we've been doing this for a long time. It's just that the general public is not aware of it.
All aluminum cans from the Milwaukee program and other sources are compressed into high-density bales of 30,000 cans, each weighing 1,300 pounds. They'll be sent to companies that make new cans. Of the billions manufactured, 64% are now recycled.
In aluminum recycling, you save approximately 95% of the energy in making new cans out of old cans, as opposed to making aluminum out of bauxite.
Abandon your car on a Milwaukee street or dispose of that old washing machine and it also might end up here. Miller Compressing processes scrap of all kinds.
There's approximately 500 different grades of scrap. We'll handle anything from brass, copper, stainless steel. We handle products that consumers might relate to, such as automobiles, appliances, stoves, refrigerators, water heaters, swing sets. Some of those materials actually are fairly identifiable by the general public because they use them every day. We also handle industrial scrap.
While saving raw materials, recycling activities at Miller Compressing also provide about 250 jobs. Another 200 jobs are provided by recycling at Wisconsin Paperboard, a local destination for discarded paper products, about 15,000 tons a month.
And of that, there's probably about 5,000 tons, that's what we call mixed paper, the kind of stuff you see behind you, or behind me. That's comprised of a lot of newspapers and magazines and some corrugated boxes that are picked up at the curbside. We use those products and combine them, or those fibers, and combine them with others like corrugated cartons and other materials, box cuttings, which are scrap from our customers, and use those and manufacture a variety of recycled fiber products. We process the two types of fibers separately. When we clean them, we remove the staples and paper clips, nails and grit and glass and the plastic and all those kind of things that we're not able to use. We remove those all separately, and then we combine the two streams, the mixed paper and the corrugated cartons, using computer controls to give us just the right recipe, if you will.
The finished product here is 100% recycled paperboard. 450 tons a day, 14,000 tons a month in roll or sheet form, used in many ways.
The largest portion of our business goes into the publishing industry for books and binders, for notepad backs and that kind of thing. That represents nearly half of the tonnage we produce. In addition to that, We serve a fair amount of partition markets, and those are the kind of crisscross dividers that are used in a box of glasses or maybe automotive parts. A number of different kind of products use partitions. We also produce a lot of paper in very narrow rolls, 4 or 5 inches wide, that are used in winding spiral wound cores. And some of it ends up in what we call composite cans. For every ton of paper we produce, we take 3.3 cubic yards of trash or garbage out of the landfill. In addition to 3.3 yards out of the landfill, a ton of recycled paper avoids the harvesting of about 17 average pulpwood trees.
Recycling is working so well here that other cities are looking to us for advice. In addition, the city is also helping to create a market for recycled products. Deck materials on new playground equipment and park benches are 100% recycled plastics made of the raw material collected in Milwaukee. And then there are the bins.
The recycling bins themselves that we buy, we have about 30,000 households with bin collection. The bins that we buy are 100% residentially derived post-consumer plastic. In other words, the plastic milk jugs that people set out could well end up as recycling containers here in the city of Milwaukee, closing the loop and making sure that markets are there.
You can help guarantee markets are there by shopping for products made with recycled materials. Ever done that in your backyard? Or shaken a blanket outside the door? There's a law against it.
I would think that in most cases a situation arises which the alderman perceives as a threat, as a hazard to safety, to health, to the morality of the community, and therefore proposes legislation to deal with a particular problem.
Since the city was founded, aldermen have found it necessary to address thousands of particular problems. You'll find them in over 2,000 sections of the official charter and code of ordinances. They're on file in the office of the city's Legislative Reference Bureau. Here, direct from the horse's mouth, are a couple of other laws you should be obeying. It is unlawful to fasten a horse or any other animal to any shade tree or lamp post in any street or public place within the city limits. And just in case you are bringing any horses or cattle into the city limits, it would be best not to introduce the males to the females. It's illegal for them to show affection in public. Occasionally, a law no longer makes sense, is simply obsolete, or is no longer perceived as a problem. In that case, it's repealed, like these.
Roses, roses, $1 a bunch. One bunch for $1, $1 a bunch. Roses, roses, $1 a bunch. Roses, roses, get your roses, $1 a bunch.
The moment passes, that is, there is no longer a need to legislate, to regulate, to prohibit the particular activity or whatever is perceived. And at that point, somebody else may step forward and say, this is obsolete, it no longer deals with the situation. Perhaps even technology has changed, so you're legislating against something which was obsolete, 20 or 30 years ago. There's simply no longer a need for it.
Here are a few others no longer on the books. Quiet zones within 250 feet of a hospital have disappeared. At one time, the health commissioner could declare a quiet zone within 100 feet of any building where a person was seriously ill. It once was illegal to carry or wear any sign or banner for commercial purposes on a public street. It was against the law to wear a hat pin in public if it protruded more than 1/2 inch. Another law forbids sweeping of a sidewalk on a business street unless it had first been sprinkled with water to avoid the raising of dust. There was a law outlawing spitting on a sidewalk or in public buildings, but another part of that law required owners of public buildings to provide a sufficient number of spittoons or cuspidors for patrons. Around 1980, Alderman Greg Gorak came across a law he thought was outdated, and he asked the Reference Bureau to take a look at it.
And we did that for him, and as a result of that, I guess what is his natural inclination and curiosity, he decided to ask us to go on a little obsolescence hunt. So over about the next year or so, we came up with I would say about 15 candidates for repeal obsolete ordinances, and he was more than happy to sponsor all of them.
Other old laws that were repealed included one prohibiting anyone from cutting any ice or holes in any river ice without enclosing the entire ice-cutting field with a fence. And no person could drive any horse or sleigh through city streets unless there were a sufficient number of bells to warn pedestrians. The search for outdated laws is a continuous one.
Generally what happens when we're drafting ordinances for someone and we are going through the ordinance book, and generally what we do is we look to the left and the right of that particular section. This is just a general thing that we do. And if we notice something that seems to be obsolete, we will either put it in a reviser's bill, which deals with obsolete provisions, or if it seems to be of more importance where council members really need to take a stance, we will bring it to someone's attention to see if there is indeed someone who wants to introduce the repealer.
And finally, there once was a law that prohibited a person from climbing an ornamental or shade tree or lamppost other than his own in any of the streets or public places of the city. But like most of the others that have been repealed, the prohibited activity is still covered by other sections of the Code of Ordinances. The South Side Health Center is the base of operation for the Refugee Health Program. Its tuberculosis control clinic serves as the primary screening center for refugees who differ from immigrants to this country.
A refugee is a person, or often a family, who is fleeing their native country. They can't return to that country because of political or religious persecution. They're coming here for a safe home.
While most of the 100 to 200 refugees the clinic sees yearly are from Southeast Asia, refugees are also here to escape the conflicts in Bosnia and Somalia. State grants provide much of the funding.
Often in our community, the refugees know when they arrive in Milwaukee that they need to come to the TB clinic for screening. They find this out through other people who have come into the country, their relatives, their friends, or sometimes from their sponsoring agency like Lutheran Social Service, Catholic Social Service. So the families are directed to come here.
And just taking one chest x-ray, going to have you facing a little closer, good.
Today we're going to do a couple blood tests. We're going to test for hepatitis, syphilis, and we're going to do a liver function test on you, okay?
The first time the family comes here to the clinic, they receive a TB skin test to show if they have TB infection. They get a chest x-ray. They get blood work to determine if they might have hepatitis or other significant contagious diseases. We do a health survey and evaluation of their current health. We review the papers that they brought from the country. We take the x-ray and compare it to the one that we have, and we provide them any immunizations that are needed. At the second visit, we have some of the results ready for them, and we can tell if they have active tuberculosis or if they would be a good candidate to take preventive medicine for tuberculosis because they have TB infection in their system.
Now, this is not just a service that's provided here. You also go out into the home, into the community.
Yes, and that's a very important part of the refugee program. After all of the test results are back for the refugee family, a district nurse visits their home with an appointment, accompanied by an interpreter, and explains the screening results to them. She gives them 2 copies, one for them to keep for their personal records and one to give to their medical care provider. To help locate a medical care provider that would be culturally sensitive and in a good location for the family so they can continue their medication continue their immunizations, and often get a complete physical provided by a physician.
Public health interpreter aides assist refugee families in bridging the gaps between Asian and U.S. culture. Now Tu Shang was himself a refugee of the Vietnam War. He fought with U.S. forces in Laos and came to Milwaukee in 1980.
And my people, they came in the United States, they don't know how to see the doctor or see the clinic. So they hired me to work in here because I try to help my people, and I try to help the nurse or the doctor to communicate how we can get together and to help them, the refugee.
Now Tu interprets several Asian languages, helping the health provider understand the cultures while communicating the needs and fears of the refugee.
I understand, I can speak, I can express what my culture, and I can tell exactly what we need to do and what the doctor want to do.
And they're very appreciative to be in a country where there is not political strife, where they know they will have opportunities for good education for their children, and where they received a good health screening with an interpreter that helps them understand exactly what's happening.
In addition to the clinic and home visits, the health department also participates in other related community programs, including offering some food and clothing from what is called an incentive room at the Southside Clinic.
The food is purchased from Second Harvest through a grant from the American Lung Association that we really appreciate. TB patients and refugees also often have poor nutrition and low weight, and they need nutritional food and supplements so that they can take those with their medication. It also helps promote adherence to the therapy that we want them to follow.
These health services are important not only for the refugees, but also for the rest of the residents of the Milwaukee community.
Oh, this service is immensely important because it protects the citizens of Milwaukee and the surrounding community, because the refugees are being screened for communicable disease soon after they arrive in the country. It also is protecting the refugee family because they may not have had appropriate medical services in their home country.
All right, bye. What I think that we should do today is possibly
Me a better name. Kiss me. Yeah. Is she a good teacher? Yeah. That's good.
The city's Office of Youth Initiatives pairs city employees with students from Cass Street School for 90 minutes of tutoring and mentoring each week. It's a partnership with the YMCA one-on-one program.
Mentoring is a very special relationship because oftentimes it's between a young person and an adult who have never met each other before, and they develop a friendship. They develop that relationship, and it's a lot about guidance and support and caring and sharing and having some fun together, but primarily being friends. And most studies will show that middle school students, particularly at this age, need that particular type of adult support.
That way? Now, remember last night how we wrote it in 2 different columns so that you could line up the decimal points? And we asked how many...
The mentoring program stresses academics, and mentor Beverly Craig often helps 6th grader Sarah James with her math and other homework. It's her first exposure to being a mentor.
And I wanted to volunteer, and I'd heard from somebody in the controller's office that they'd done a really great job, the student that they've been working with over 2 years, and that he'd improved leaps and bounds, and that really mentoring was more than just helping someone work on their math. It was also finding out lots of information about the person and just really caring a lot about them. So I thought it was a good program, and it has a great track record, so I thought it'd be a good thing to spend my time on.
While stressing education and study habits, the program also includes group and individual social activities. And the two will talk about goal setting and other issues of interest to middle school students.
Some of it was just life skills kind of stuff, like how do you cope? And then what else do we talk about?
Jobs.
Jobs. You keep changing your mind. Last year you wanted to be a nurse.
You get to share things that you like to share with your mentor, and you do get a lot of experience from each other.
Well, it benefits me in that I like to see Sarah grow and get better. Sometimes on certain things she has a little trouble at first, but we've been getting better over time. And I think over time her grades are improving too, and she's having better relationships with some of her teachers and with some of her other friends at school. And I like to be able to see that. It's very rewarding.
So this office handles birth certificates for all City of Milwaukee occurrences. Our births go back to 1893, and our death certificates go back to 1869. So I'm going to show you how you go in here.
This is the third year that city employee Gloria Ward has been working with 8th grader Tiffany Brantley. The mentors work with the youngsters every Wednesday from 3 until 4:30 p.m., but the volunteer work is strictly on their own time.
I look at the youth of today as being our future, and I found from working with Tiffany and the other students in the program that, I mean, it's like the future looks bright. You know, you hear about all this negative stuff on TV about the youth, but in working on the one-on-one program, I found that the students are they're just so positive, and it's just a real privilege for me to work with Tiffany and with the one-on-one program.
She helps me out like with my education. Like sometimes my goals may be I want to get better with my grades. So when I come here, she helps me out with my homework, and that helps me out on my report card.
The city's mentoring program is one of 20 sponsored by the YMCA. 25 schools are involved. 10 to 35 students meet with a mentor at each location. But with a lack of mentors, many young people who would like to be in the program don't have the opportunity.
Right now, we are really looking for mentors. We'd like to touch as many students as we possibly can, but with the program being called one-on-one, well, we like to match a mentor with a student. So the more mentors we have, the more students we can involve, the more lives we can touch. If you really look at it and you're really concerned about youth, you know, you figure an hour, hour and a half isn't a lot of time, especially when you're dealing with Milwaukee's future.
Well, I really think that the entire community benefits because these young people, through this mentoring relationship, really make a commitment to their education. And education is the future for these kids, for any young person in the community.
All you need to be a mentor is a genuine concern for youngsters and the ability to give a one-year commitment. City employees can call the Office of Youth Initiatives at 286-2034. All others can call the YMCA at 817-9622. While some mentors give more time than the minimum, you can make a difference in a young person's life without leaving your place of work.
I'll tell the mentors that they need to join because we need a lot of mentors to show kids the good way of life and to teach our young kids about life and education and everything that surrounds them.
I'd say just do it, and I think that says it all.